I've been, trying to keep the public up to date as much as possible. My image hasn't changed at all. It was always Daniel's evil, Daniel's a monster, and with that painted narrative, the public automatically will just jump to it.
There are moments in investigations when nothing new is discovered in the field. No arrest is made, no dramatic breakthrough occurs, and yet the entire case quietly changes. Not because of a confession or a recovered clue, but because information that once remained hidden becomes public. In the case of Jack and Lily Sullivan, that moment arrived when previously sealed court documents were unsealed and released. These filings did not announce conclusions or declare guilt. Instead, they revealed something more subtle and more important: how investigators were thinking when the public was not watching. For months, the case had been framed almost entirely around a single question: where did the children go? Search efforts focused outward. Woods were searched, waterways were examined, tips were logged, evaluated, and often ruled out. Each day without answers deepened public frustration. But behind the scenes, investigators were doing what they always do in cases that refuse to resolve cleanly. They were examining context, relationships, timelines, and environments, especially the last places where the children were known to be under adult supervision. The newly unsealed documents matter because they provide a rare glimpse into that process. They are not findings. They are not verdicts. They are records of questions investigators believed were important enough to formally document. They show what law enforcement needed to clarify, what raised concern, and what justified deeper scrutiny. For the first time, the public could see the investigative lens turn inward toward the children's home life and the relationship dynamics surrounding it. At the center of those documents are questions about the relationship between the children's mother, Malaya Brooks Murray, and her partner, Daniel Martell. According to the filings, investigators asked Murray whether Martell had ever been physically abusive toward her. Her responses, as recorded, described incidents in which she said Martell blocked her movements, held her down, and on one occasion pushed her. She also stated that when she attempted to call her mother, Martell would sometimes take her phone in ways she said caused pain. Daniel Martell has publicly denied these allegations. Following the unsealing of the documents, he stated that the claims were false and intended to portray him negatively. He has also said that, in his view, public perception of him had already been shaped by suspicion long before these records were released. His position is clear. Allegations, he argues, have been mistaken for facts. It is essential to be precise here. These court filings do not establish abuse. They do not determine credibility. They document what investigators asked and what responses were recorded. In investigations, especially those involving missing children, such questions are not unusual. They reflect an effort to understand household dynamics, access, and potential stressors, not a declaration of wrongdoing. Martell has also emphasized that he voluntarily provided his DNA for forensic testing related to the case. According to his statements, he signed consent forms and was not compelled to do so. Investigators have acknowledged this cooperation. However, cooperation alone does not confirm innocence, just as refusal would not establish guilt. It becomes one data point among many in a broader assessment. Officially, the case remains classified as a missing persons investigation. Despite the involvement of major crimes units, authorities have not announced charges, arrests, or definitive conclusions. The story, therefore, does not sit at an answer. It sits at a shift. Because once internal investigative questions become public, the focus expands. The case stops being only about where Jack and Lily went and starts being about what was happening before they disappeared. To understand why investigators asked these questions, it is necessary to step back and examine the broader family context. According to interviews with relatives, Malaya Brooks Murray was described in earlier years as a devoted and attentive mother. Family members recalled regular communication, shared caregiving, consistent involvement in the children's schooling, and frequent contact with extended family. Over time, according to those same interviews, that pattern changed. Relatives described Murray as becoming more distant, less communicative, and increasingly isolated after entering her relationship with Martell. Visits became less frequent. Phone calls became harder to arrange. Information about daily routines became more limited. These observations are not proof of wrongdoing, but they are the kinds of changes investigators document when assessing family environments. According to statements later referenced in court filings, Murray told family members she was unhappy in the relationship and had considered leaving. Interviews indicated concerns about tension in the household, financial strain, and disagreements related to parenting. These are common stressors in many households. In isolation, they mean little. In missing children cases, however, they are never irrelevant. Additional concerns surface through the children's school. Reporting later confirmed that school staff contacted Child Protection Services after noticing issues related to how Jack and Lily were arriving at school. The specific nature of those concerns has not been publicly detailed. What is known is that the contact triggered a visit by a child protection worker to the home in the months before the children disappeared. There is no public record indicating that the children were removed from the home. There is also no indication that school staff viewed themselves as whistleblowers or interveners. They are described instead as professionals who noticed changes and followed established procedures. Investigators examine this period closely because it represents a narrowing window, a moment when multiple systems briefly intersected, family, school, and child protection, before losing visibility again. In true crime storytelling, context is often mistaken for accusation. In reality, context serves a different purpose. It helps investigators understand environment. What pressures existed? What support systems weakened? What patterns changed quietly without immediate consequence? When children disappear, investigators do not begin with the final day alone. They trace what was slowly shifting before it. As the investigation continued, a pattern emerged that complicated matters further. Diverging accounts. Court filings and media interviews revealed two narratives moving in parallel. One described relationship strain and concerning behavior. The other rejected those claims entirely, emphasizing cooperation and denial. These narratives occasionally touched, but never reconciled. Contradiction, however, is not evidence. Investigators do not move cases forward based on who sounds more convincing. They focus instead on what can be independently verified. That principle becomes especially important when accounts diverge sharply. The question shifts from who is telling the truth to what can be tested, confirmed, or ruled out. This brings the investigation to one of its most significant pressure points: time. Investigators have confirmed that the last known visual record of Jack and Lily comes from security footage at a Dollarama store. The video shows the children alive, together, and in public. Nothing in the footage suggests distress or urgency. What makes this moment critical is not what it shows, but what follows. Between that confirmed sighting and the 911 call reporting the children missing lies a window of time that remains largely unaccounted for. Investigators have not publicly released a complete, independently verified timeline for that period. During those hours, digital activity ceased. Phones went silent. No third-party witnesses placed the children elsewhere. No verified movements beyond the store footage have been confirmed. In missing persons investigations, this absence matters, not because silence implies wrongdoing, but because it limits verification. Investigators rely on continuity, data points that connect moments into a coherent sequence. When that continuity breaks, uncertainty concentrates. According to reporting, investigators examined device data, location records, and communication logs to determine when activity stopped and whether any anomalies existed. While the full findings of those reviews have not been released, the absence of digital footprints during critical hours raised questions that required closer examination. Investigators have also noted the lack of independent witnesses during that period. The gap does not contradict the official account, but it does not reinforce it either. As days turned into weeks, this unverified stretch of time became a focal point. Law enforcement has been careful not to describe the gap as evidence of a crime. Instead, it has been framed as an area requiring further examination. That distinction matters. Investigations do not progress on suspicion alone. They move forward when timelines fail to lock into place. Months after Jack and Lily were reported missing, the investigation entered a quieter, more deliberate phase. Extensive searches had already taken place. Terrain had been covered. Tips had been evaluated. What began as a search and rescue effort confronted a harder reality. The children had not been found, and no external location had produced answers. According to court filings and reporting, investigators returned their attention to the home. This shift did not signal an accusation. It reflected procedure. When searches fail to locate missing children, investigators are trained to reassess the last environment where the children were known to be under adult supervision. That reassessment often includes a forensic review, not because a crime is assumed, but because unanswered questions remain. Sources familiar with the investigation say the residence was revisited with a different focus than during the initial response. The goal was no longer to confirm absence, but to determine whether anything within the home environment had been overlooked. Advanced forensic techniques were applied, consistent with unresolved missing persons cases. These methods are designed to detect subtle indicators rather than dramatic scenes, traces that might suggest an event occurred without leaving obvious signs. According to reporting, this review led investigators to identify indicators requiring further analysis, particularly relating to Lily. Authorities have not publicly detailed what those indicators were. They have not released specific findings, timelines, or conclusions. They have also avoided describing the indicators as proof of a crime. Instead, they have characterized them as findings that warranted escalation. This distinction is critical. Forensic indicators do not tell a complete story. They signal possibility, not cause, intent, or outcome. In court documents, investigators emphasize that the presence of such indicators does not establish when an event occurred or who may have been involved. It establishes only that further examination is justified. What complicates the case further is silence. Some questions raised by family members, school staff, and journalists have never been publicly answered. Sometimes that silence exists because investigations remain active. Sometimes it exists because individuals decline to comment. Either way, silence creates a dangerous space in public storytelling, the gap between what is alleged and what is proven. The documents do not declare abuse. The denials do not erase the allegations. Investigators are left to work between those positions. Contradiction alone is not evidence of guilt, but it is often where investigations slow down and look closer. Because when accounts diverge this sharply, verification becomes more urgent. Today, the case stands in that space, not resolved, but narrowed, not answered, but focused. The central questions are no longer only about where Jack and Lily went, but about what can be independently confirmed about the time leading up to their disappearance. Investigations do not move forward on narrative. They move forward on proof. This story deserves attention, not assumptions. The discomfort surrounding it does not come from what is known. It comes from what remains unverified and where that uncertainty sits in the timeline. Until those gaps close, the case will remain exactly where it is now, suspended between absence and explanation, waiting for facts strong enough to anchor it.